Merry Christmas, y'all. We are climbing the labyrinth. And this is Christmas version because I will tell you I got way too nerdy this week. And so I started working on sermon for this week. We're going through a sermon series here at FRC called Expecting, where we're kind of going through a few of the different characters within the Christmas story, and then looking at like what do we expect of them, like when we approach the story, what is our expectation, and then what is the reality of who they are, or what they did, or the situation that happened, and then what we can kind of pull from that. And this week was supposed to be the heavenly host. So from Luke chapter 2, the shepherds are out on the field, and the angel shows up with this heavenly host. And the question was, so who are the heavenly hosts? What's going on there? And I got way too far into reading too many things and got way too nerdy. And so decided to scrap that whole, or at least large portions of that sermon, and make it a podcast because it's a little easier to digest, because I get it that some weeks that I can get super nerdy when I stand up front. And so sermon will be different, but have parts of this. This is going to cover, so who were the heavenly hosts? What was going on there? And I will give you a sneak peek of, we will talk about heavenly host. And by the end, I will give you a possible birth date for Jesus based on heavenly host. So we'll jump in there, and I will just tell you right off the bat that this is not info that I am not the one that sifted through all of this stuff. This is somebody else's info that in by and large, I mean, this is of course me delivering things, but I am indebted to Dr. E.L. Martin, who wrote the book The Star That Astonished the World. He was I believe he's a meteorologist, that's where his doctorate was in, and not in biblical things, but wrote in a lot of biblical stuff. And Dr. Michael Heiser, who does things with the unseen realm, and this book, Reversing Hermon, was one that helped me kind of sift through some things of kind of the stuff that we don't normally think of when we approach the biblical narrative, with the heavenly host, with the angels, with demons, with all sorts of stuff. Anyway, you can check their stuff out. I'll even maybe put a link down below for The Star That Astonished the World, because you can read that online. It's a little clunky because you have to click through the chapters individually, or you can they'll read it to you. You just have to click each individual video thing. But first off, that is where a lot of this info comes from. So scholarly information that's not just biblical, and we're going to weave the story together. So here we go. Right off the bat, we're jumping in, and you see Luke chapter 2. We'll start at verse 8 and go through 15. And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keep watching over their flocks by night. And an angel, and I'll just note that the word angel really is the Greek word messenger. We just choose to transliterate it angel. So, and a messenger of the Lord, as we think of angels, an angel appeared to them, the shepherds, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified, as most would be. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause joy for all people." Go to the next one. "Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and laying in a manger." Suddenly, so all of a sudden, the angel finished saying that you will have a Savior born to you. He will be the Messiah, the Lord, and this is how you'll find him, all wrapped up, swaddled in a little baby Jesus. And then suddenly a great company of heavenly hosts. And I will tell you that this word host is an odd one, because when you look through this, your brain, I'm going to assume, is going to go immediately to suddenly more angels showed up. But what it says is suddenly a great company of the heavenly host. And then that word host can be translated in the Greek. It can mean host. It can mean army, generally army, or it can also mean stars. And the idea is a vast amount of people. So this translates it a great company of heavenly hosts. I think you could say something along the lines, and a vast heavenly army appeared with the angel. So suddenly all this stuff comes into view, still singular angel, with the messenger, and they were praising God, saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace to those whom his favor rests." Now, that could all be translated a little bit differently, but we'll leave it for now. When the angels, now this is plural, I think this is where they would say messengers would be a better translation here. When the messengers had left the shepherds, and gone into heaven, as in the heavenly realms up above, the place above, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this things which has happened, which the Lord has told us about." Okay, so what is the heavenly host? We got to dig in here, and we're gonna move through here and try and kind of pick up some things, because you have these shepherds that are out on the field who, if you take a moment and think about it, what do they do with most of their life? They follow the sheep around. They take them from place to place. They feed them. They make sure that they're okay. And then at night, they hang out, keep the sheep safe from scary things. And when you're laying out at night, what do? You stare up into the sky. Pretty dark out there. And you stare into the sky. So here we go. Here's the next part. Let's just jump back and go, how do we parse out this heavenly host stuff? If we go back to Genesis 2, we see that creation has finished. We get to the sixth day, and we get this phrase in Genesis 2:1. "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array." The literal of that in the Hebrew is, "Thus was completed heavens, all earth, and all host," or all army, or all of everything. So you have the heavens, the earth, and all of the host were completed. I wonder what that means. Okay, let's keep on going through the biblical story here. We get to Deuteronomy 4:19, and we get a little peek into here. This is Moses telling the people, like, hey, now that you've come out, don't go and make for yourselves a bunch of idols. So you didn't see the form of God at Mount Horeb, so don't go making something in his image, because you don't know what his image is. And he goes on from here. "And when you look up to the sky and you see the sun, you see the moon, and you see the stars, all," and this is in parentheses, "all of the heavenly array," as in all of the heavenly host, all of the heavenly army, all of the host of heaven, "do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshiping them and the things that the Lord your God has appointed." He's appointed these things to the nations under heaven. Now that gets into a whole different kind of idea between Babel and apportioning out these different areas for the nations, because there is a spiritual realm involved. More stuff on that would be Dr. Heiser's book, Unseen Realm. That's really good for that. You get to look into the sons of God and the watchers and all that kind of weird stuff that makes most of us kind of nervous when we start talking about things. So here we see in Deuteronomy that there's the sun, there's the moon, there's the stars, all the heavenly host. So the heavenly host is up there, and you can see that they are maybe a part of the sun, moon, and stars, or are considered sun, moon, and stars. Where I want to go to next is where we begin to see some of these things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of before. We're going to go Ezekiel 1. I'm not going to read it. You should know the story. Ezekiel is in exile in Babylon, and he has this crazy vision where he looks up to the sky, and amidst a windstorm and lightning and thunder and wheels within wheels, and he sees these creatures, this creatures with the face of a man and a lion and an ox and an eagle and all of these different facets with wings, and the thing moves around, and you go, what in the world is that? Well, if you take a step back and you go, oh, he's in Babylon and he sees God, the Lord, maybe Messiah Jesus in some sort of quasi-incarnate form or something, where we see a messenger of the Lord coming down on his heavenly chariot, like a king would do, like a ruler would do, riding throughout the countryside or through the empire to show how great they are with all their splendor. Instead, he sees the Lord coming down in the thunder and the awe and the lightning and the wheels within the wheels and all this stuff, and these animals, these creatures that are pulling the chariot or moving the chariot. Now, what you may not grasp is man, lion, ox, and eagle are the four different sides or the posts. If you think of like us, north, south, east, west, these are the cardinal directions of the zodiac symbols, plural, as in you look up into the sky and we have those zodiac symbols that each thing looks in and everything represents something. So you have the lion on one side, you have the man on the other, you have the ox and the eagle, all of these things that Ezekiel is looking up, and he sees God coming down riding on the zodiac, riding on the stars of heaven. Now that's a pretty cool imagery. You go a little bit further, and you see somebody else pick this up. John in the book of Revelation 4. And John looks up and he gets to see, looked up, as in looked up. Remember, he's on an island, Patmos, in the Mediterranean, and he looks up, and what is he going to see? He's going to begin by seeing stars. And then he gets to see into the throne room of heaven, and he sees these living creatures again. Lion, ox, man, eagle, all of these things that either he takes from the heavenly zodiac. And before you get kind of weirded out, there are plenty of archaeological evidence of Jewish synagogues that are filled with astrological symbols up in the decorations, basically, like that they're there, that it wasn't that suddenly they were looking to those things to find answers. Like that's where things go wrong. When you dabble in divination and astrology and stuff, this isn't about a horoscope. This is the stars of the heavens that have been given these characteristics. So he looks up and he sees again these stars in the heavens, these heavenly hosts, these animals, these creatures that have different things. And then also to note that suddenly he says they have all these wings and they're covered in eyes. Covered in eyes, or these are the zodiac symbols that you think of, the man, the ox, the lion, the eagle. You can think all this stuff, Leo, and I don't know, all the different ones. And you begin to look at these things, and then what are the eyes? The other stars. Maybe. I mean, some of this is possible conjecture. You have to kind of read through it. Excuse me, let me get a drink. But when we go there, then we begin to see this kind of heavenly host thing transfer. And I'm connecting the dots between looking into the sky and seeing a heavenly host, and then these visions that these prophets have, looking into the sky and seeing what I would consider heavenly hosts. If we keep on going, then we're going to get to the question that helps kind of parse this out. Paul in Romans 10 begins this conversation, and here is where things are kind of... he's trying to speak on how Israel can be a part of the new covenant and not believe, or he wants to bring up until the culmination of Romans 11, where he talks about those who is the true Israel. But here we get longing for Israel to be saved, and many people probably have this memorized, but he begins with, and this is the message concerning the faith that we proclaim. This is our message that we give to you. If you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And then jump ahead a little more. He says a few things about Gentiles and stuff. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Okay. You keep on going. Verse 14. How then can they call on the one that they have not believed in? As in, if you don't know, how do you call on this name? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? Like, how does somebody fill out that aspect of having faith if nobody's ever told them, if they don't know anything? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? So if somebody doesn't preach to them, how do they know? here's what Paul says. This is going to bend your brain a little bit. But I ask, did they not hear? Big question mark. Of course they did. Oh, of course they did hear? Okay, how? And then he goes on. Their voice has gone out into all the earth. Their voice has gone out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. Their voice has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. What the heck is he talking about? Whose voice? Whose words? This is a direct quotation from Psalm 19. Let's go to Psalm 19 and connect the dots. Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. The heavens, the place up above. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them. Oh my goodness. Okay, so he says, from the skies and the heavens, they speak a message. They pour forth speech and reveal knowledge, but they don't use any words to do it. And you go, oh, what is he? Maybe keep going. Yet their voice, and this is in one translation. When you go to the Masoretic text, a different manuscript, it has, and yet their measuring line goes out into all the earth. Their voice, their line that they create goes out into all the earth. This could be, I mean, if you're looking at things from an astrological sense, the ecliptic line, how things travel throughout the heavens, goes out into all the earth. Their voice goes out into all the earth, the measuring line, and their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens, God has pitched a tent for the sun. It is like the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. So here, the psalmist is saying that when you look into the heavens, you see God's voice, you hear God's voice, even though it doesn't say anything. It has no words, but it speaks. Paul uses that to say in Romans 10 that everybody has seen God's glory and that God has proclaimed to them. Okay, so the heavens are saying things and they speak to us, and Paul says that at some point they spoke forth that there was a message of salvation. What is this? Okay, the next jump is going to be a stretch for some of you because we're going to go back to the book of Revelation, but it is not going back to the book of Revelation looking for some sort of end time prophecy, but looking at what John may be using as this sign. Maybe this is the sign. There's nothing in the biblical record that tells us this is a one-to-one correlation. This is us using our deductive reasoning in our brains to kind of connect some dots. We go to Revelation 12. Some of you should be going, oh, that's where the weird stuff happens. And a great sign appeared in heaven. So John, looking up into the heavens, remember, on an island, looking into the heavens, and a great sign appeared. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. I know, I told you things get a little weird here. Its tail swept away a third of the stars of the sky and flung them to the earth. And the dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that it might devour her child the moment he was born. Now, let me just pause. Most of the time we look at this and we go, well, this was the story of the dragon must be Satan, and Satan sweeps away a third of the angels from heaven. Well, that's nowhere in the biblical record. We just attribute that and say that. But that's nothing in the biblical, that's nowhere to be found throughout the Bible. It never ever says that Satan swept down a third of the angels. We just use this to assume that. Rather, it says there were no stars there. We'll get to that in a second. And he's waiting to devour the child. The woman gives birth to a son, a male child who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. This is a direct quote from Psalm 2, where God comes and rules over all things. and her child was snatched up to God and his throne. Now here we begin to see that this child is taken. What John is beginning to see is the resurrection and ascension narrative. And the woman fled into the wilderness, prepared for her by God so that she might be taken care of for, and then it gives the weird numbers. I'm not getting into any of the numbers of the 1,260 days. What I want to say here is a great sign appeared in heaven. John looks up to heaven and he goes, oh my goodness, there is a woman in the sky clothed with the sun. The moon is at her feet and there is a crown of stars above her head. Here's what we do. This is where I'm indebted to E.L. Martin and his book, The Star That Astonished the World. So as you begin to move into this, you see that, okay, so who is the woman? Well, we often think of Mary, and I think there is kind of the overlap of that, but the idea here is this is Israel. This is God's people, Israel, longing for that Messiah to come, and the stars tell the story of that. Here are, this is going to weird you out a little bit. Here's a picture. Now, I'll try and blow it up as big as I can. But what you can see here is in the middle, you see the sign Virgo, as in the Virgin. And you can see, I kind of highlighted it in pink right here so that you can see the stars. And this isn't a great picture. I'll give you a few more so you can kind of see it. Here is Virgo. And in her belly region, her midriff, is the sun. This is actual, as they plotted the stars and everything, and how things move around. They can then track what it would have been. So this is through an astrological program, and you see that she is clothed with the sun, as in where you would wear clothes, and down by her feet is the moon. Above her head is Leo, as in the lion. As in the Lion of Judah. Within the Lion of Judah is what we will talk about in a moment, is the convergence of the planet Jupiter and the star Regulus, which was the regal star, the kingly star, and the king planet converging together. This is what the Magi saw later on. We'll talk about that in a second. So within Leo, we see Regulus and Jupiter converge to make a huge, big light. To the side, you can see is, in a different picture, I'll show you a little better view, is what could be the dragon. So you see on one side is the constellation called Hydra. You can't see the top of it in this picture, and you can notice that there is a large portion of stars that do not surround the dragon. A third of the sky is empty because it has taken all them up. Or the other possibility is just below the woman is what is considered ancient Scorpio. I believe it is Scorpio, and I don't remember what the signs are. I'm not into signage and horoscopes and stuff. But two of the modern astrological symbols are in the ancient astrological account, and it is Scorpio. So it has the tail that is the scary scorpion with the pincers up front right below the woman. Here's a little different picture that you can see it turned on its side. So you see Virgo coming down, and you see the moon over here. I zoom in a little bit. You can see the moon right here at her feet. Let me get a good spot. You see the clothed in the sun. Over here you see the constellation Leo, the lion, and you see Regulus and Jupiter forming at the corner of it. And here is Hydra coming along the side. You can see the actual top of it, where it comes over here waiting to devour the child. Okay, maybe that's pretty interesting. Here's another view where if you take the view of maybe it's ancient Scorpio and not Hydra, the point is that all of these pieces are there depending on how you fit them together. So you still have Leo up above, you have the Virgo in the middle, the Virgin about to conceive with the moon at her feet, clothed in the sun. I should go back. I'll go back one here, and you can see. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Here is the top of Virgo with Venus, and right around the very top is this constellation of 12 stars that surrounds her head like a crown. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not I'm not getting into too many crazy things, but this is documented stuff where you can go back into the historical record and you begin to see these things. Okay, so ancient Scorpio, you can see how that may look like the dragon underneath waiting to devour the child. Here's a zoomed in view so you can kind of see all these little bits and pieces. Now, what you may be asking is, what the heck is going on? So we have this woman in the sky, Virgo, clothed in the sun, as in the sun is in her midriff that she would give birth to, and the moon is at her feet. We have the constellation Leo up above that as in ascended up above, that has the king planet and the king star both converged. And we have either ancient Scorpio below or Hydra, the constellation, to the side. In both cases, large amounts of stars are not near those constellations. So there's nothing there. So you would get a third of the stars swept away. What does that tell us? Maybe, just maybe, one, the Magi look into the sky and they see this. They are astrologers. They look into the sky and they see this convergence of Regulus, Jupiter, and Leo. They see the Virgin clothed with the sun, moon at her feet. They see the dragon, the red dragon from the south that's waiting to devour the child. They see all of these things put together, and John brings that story to life. Maybe he saw it. Maybe somebody told him about it. We don't know. Maybe Paul was thinking of this when he says the whole heavens have spoke. Like, how are anybody going to know if they have not heard? Well, they've heard because the stars proclaim. The heavenly host proclaim. All of a sudden, we go back to the shepherds and you see the shepherds on the countryside. The angel shows up, gives them a message, and all of a sudden, poof, the heavens explode. As in front of their eyes, the great radiance of the Lord shows up, and they see these signs, and they speak to them. Glory to God in the highest, and peace to those on whom his favor rests. Ooh, goodness. Now here's where I know that gets kind of, some of you will have a hard time with that just because it's astrological stuff, but the Bible is full of people looking up into the sky and seeing God's glory. From the very beginning of Genesis, God creates the heavens and the earth and all of it. And he goes, and we get to that part where he says, and God created the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, and the whole array, the whole host of all of it. As in, God creates these things. And we see throughout the Old Testament narrative where not only does Ezekiel look up into the sky, and he sees the heavenly chariot of God riding on the stars. I mean, that's a crazy image. John picks that up in the book of Revelation. He looks into the sky and he sees these animals clothed with all of these different heads, with all these eyes, stars twinkling. Maybe, just maybe. I mean, let's just think pragmatically here. So then what does that give us? A couple of things. When you have these constellations in alignment, it has only happened once in this way. That gives you about a 20-day period of Virgo in this place with the sun in her clothed area, as in the belly area, the midriff area. You get about 20 days out of the year that this happens. But within that same year, you only get 90-minute window of when the moon is at her feet. Now, dun, 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 just wait, you're going to get, and this is not from me, this is through Martin and Heiser. I don't have these astrological programs, or I give you a lot better pictures, but it just blew my mind. Birth of Jesus, September 11th, 3 BC. September 11, 3 BC. And I have on here on the slide two different things. One, birth of Jesus, September 11, 3 BC. Two, the Magi would then have visited December 25, 2 BC. And I'll explain part of that. So with the Jesus birth thing, here's the crazy part. September 11th, 3 BC was Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, the beginning. And the day of trumpets. You blow the trumpet to signal something new. Now, after the Exodus, the people began to practice more of the New Year aspect within their actual calendar year, began to start over after the Passover in Nisan. That's the name of the month. This month is Tishri 1, much like we would think January 1, but it occurs on our calendar of September 11th during the year 3 BC, the first day of the year when they blow the trumpets for something new, the day that they actually used for many times to coronate a king. Jesus is born. Now, I know this seems like weird kind of conspiracy theory stuff, but I'm telling you, I read through all the stuff and all the astrological stuff, and is this a salvation issue? No. Is it fun and interesting? Heck yeah. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The Magi, now you have to see that they would look into the sky, see something happening, and go, we got to go. And we learned last week, and maybe I'll do a separate video on the Magi just from last week in our sermon series. We talked about their kind of preparation that happened with Daniel in Babylon throughout the story of the Medes and the Persians and the use of magi and interpreters of dreams and astrologers and readers of the signs, that then 600, 500 and some years later, we get this encounter. So they look into the sky, they see Virgo with the sun in her belly, moon at her feet, the dragon down below, and Leo, the lion, as in Lion of Judah, with the king star and the king planet all at one point, September 11, 3 BC. What happens then is they begin their journey. The reason that we get the December 25, 2 BC date is this is when Jupiter and Regulus on their own come back into alignment the next year and start what they call a retrograde motion, where when you look at it upon the horizon, it seems to go and shift forward and move back on the ecliptic line. And so it looks like it goes somewhere and stays standing still for 6 days. The 6 days preceding and around December 25. This is craziness. I mean, is it the winter solstice? Yeah, but it also gives us those that bring presents on December 25. Seems pretty stinking cool to me. Okay, I've talked for 30 some minutes. So that gives you a little bit of fun Christmas time things to sort through, and maybe you'll go through this and go, I don't know about that, but maybe. Just maybe. I mean, it's fun, and it's an interesting topic that we get a few things here. The heavenly hosts show up after the angel proclaims what just happened. They come and they proclaim glory. Glory in the Greek is a word that literally means to provide radiance or splendor, and is usually associated in the ancient Greek with the stars shining bright. They proclaim glory to God in the heaven. And now we usually, technically, I think it says in the highest, as in the highest place, there is glory and it shines forth. And then you, the people that are here, the shepherds and all, you get the peace. You get the peace from the glory because they are sitting in the dark at night with scary wolves and things coming around to take their sheep, and the shepherd is there to protect them, and the light shows up to dispel the darkness. This is just crazy stuff. Okay, I've rambled on and gave you lots of bits and pieces here to digest. You may have to rewind and start over. All that to say, maybe that heavenly host is the stars of the sky. The vast army of heaven that we see, the thousands upon thousands that bring a message to us. Remember, every time you see the word angel in the New Testament, it is the word messenger or messengers. Most of the time in the singular, it is a single individual thing. Gabriel, Michael, an angel of the Lord. When it is in the plural, usually it is messengers of the Lord would be a better translation, as I would put it, rather than angels, because we get those things kind of blurred. So you see the skies proclaim a story that Paul picks up from Psalm 19. That story may be the one that we see in Revelation 12 of the sign in the heavens, the virgin that conceives and is about to give birth, clothed in the sun, moon at her feet, the dragon there that has swept away the other stars because there aren't any near it, waiting to devour the child. I don't know. My mind got bent, and I decided that this was not one of those like boom, head brain explosion things that would be, most people probably couldn't follow this for a Sunday sermon. And so I decided that after going through all this stuff, that this was podcast material and not sermon material. So hope y'all enjoyed. You have climbed the labyrinth with me just a little bit further, climb up the hill of craziness. No, this is not, you can totally look it up on things. Just be careful all the stuff that you Google. I'll try and put some links down below so you can see the Martin book and link to some of the stuff from Dr. Heiser, who has kind of parsed some of this stuff out. And I will say, I read through the Martin book, and I don't track with him on everything. But he is the one that's looking in the sky and followed all the astrological stuff where you see the things about the Jupiter and Regulus convergence. You see all of the signs with Virgo and Leo and those things, sun, moon, and stars, all of that stuff. He's kind of parsed all that stuff out. And then some of the interpretations that he takes from that, I wouldn't take fully. I think that this is just one picture. This is not a picture that John is using to project into the future about some sort of end times thing, but something that happened. That this is the stars proclaiming the birth of Christ. Anyway, till next time.